Hello and welcome to Your Wise Self with Sara. I'm so glad that you are here. This episode is going to highlight an upcoming retreat called Return to Her that I'm co-hosting with Kara Dobelis. Before we get into anything, I simply want you to take a nice long deep breath. That's truly what this episode and this retreat is all about. If you're running on empty or you've been taking care of everyone else and quietly wondering when it is your turn, this episode and this retreat is for you. Stay with us. I get to share the stage on June 26th at the Return to Her retreat with someone who I believe is doing some of the most important work in women's health right now. She is blending science of the body with the wisdom of the spirit in a way that just makes you feel seen. Kara, I'm so glad that you are here. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here again.
Yeah, this is number 3. I've had you on the podcast a couple of times already, and we've been friends for several years now, but also working in this capacity of helping each other through various things in our lives. And I think that this collaboration coming up for us was a very natural next step. So I'm excited to share with the audience what we're working on. But I'm curious first, just a little bit about you, if the audience maybe hasn't listened to our other episodes yet, which I of course encourage them to go back and check out. But
Sure.
tell us just a little bit about yourself and maybe if you wouldn't mind even just diving into when you realized in your own life that women needed a space like this, where you were feeling like there just wasn't anything else like this out there.
Absolutely. We became friends during really the uprise of my practice, Integrative Family Medicine, and I am the CEO and co-founder of that medical practice based out of West Des Moines. And I'm also a nurse practitioner. I practice integratively. And I've probably said this before, but integrative medicine to me is taking the physical, the emotional, and the mental auras, like these spheres around us, which comprise of our aura, and they get stuck with things like trauma, past experiences. And trauma is not necessarily what happened to you, it's usually what's left over that failed to be processed. So think of a car accident, and maybe it's not the moment of impact, but it's afterwards. If you're in the hospital with a broken leg and you feel helpless, it's oftentimes that. And they get stuck in these places on the physical, emotional, and mental bodies. And so it's a process of unsticking them and letting them ebb and flow, especially as a woman, as the feminine energy. And through this of opening my practice, which has been open almost 6 years now, I really discovered my own inner medicine, my own inner physician, and have transitioned into being what I call the medicine woman, which I now liken to the notion of, if you've read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, the feminine is the Lord. Meaning, yes, the body may keep the score and we have to unstick those places, but the feminine, especially being embodied as a gendered woman and what I identify as, and really diving into my feminine energy, when I work in a group or when I work with people, the lore is the message that must come through. And so many ways that we as women are blocking our lore.
Yes.
And we have to find that. If we want to call the body keeping the score, the physical, emotional, mental auras, that's what I'm going to call the masculine energy of the structure of what sets up the feminine and the lore to come through. And then the lore or the feminine or the integrative part is allowing spirit, God, however you want to call it, the divine, come through you. And because it is a deep relationship with me and him, God, and he just comes through me. And that is the gift now. That is my medicine. So many people think of a medicine woman or they label it as a healer. I wouldn't necessarily call it a healer. I am the activation for many women to activate this within themselves.
Yes.
And so I discovered this not only through practice, but you asked where was there a moment in your life? And I wouldn't say it was a singular moment, but I would say from about the end of 2024 at the end. So let's call it January of 2025 into summer of 2025, August 2025, I really went through what I would call a reckoning. And it shed a lot of these major relationships that I had in my life that I thought were forever, were my soul tribe, were I used to call it the band getting back together. And it used to be a place that I felt very seen in. And as I came through, as I started really embodying the Lord or the moment in the present moment of what needed to come through, it's oftentimes a reflection on others of how they're showing up. And that can really create discord. And when you're doing that in a team or in your friends group, it breaks it apart. And the notion of like, where is that moment in your life? That was the basis for what we formed here for this retreat is how do you come into a place with other women and be seen and heard and allow your experience to exist without letting it disrupt everything else. It's not a guarantee that it's not going to disrupt anything else, but I really felt like if we had a place outside of my team, outside of my personal life for all of us, not even just me, to experience this in 2025 into now, it probably wouldn't have happened this way. It wouldn't have had to have the outcome. But right now, the outcome just is as to what happened. And now I am dedicated to helping women have that space to really be seen and heard.
Yes. And it's so interesting because as humans, and especially as women, just because obviously that's what we identify as, so it's easy for us to relate to the female experience, is that we're so complex in so many ways. And we do have all of these layers. And it's interesting you talk about the shedding too. I remember in my 30s, it was the beginning of my journey. And I remember standing in my bathroom and I was like, what is happening right now? And all I could imagine was literally a snake shedding its skin. And that is literally what it felt like. And that was one of the first of many transitions in my life of maneuvering through relationships, through a marriage and a divorce, through all these different aspects. And still today, I feel that shedding continuing to happen and having your wisdom and having you be able to relay back to me what this is or what's happening is so helpful. And I think that's really what the message that you want to bring to women, that maybe they even feel like they're a failure at their relationship because it's just shifting. It's not a failure, it's just changing. And how do we learn to ebb and flow with those shifts in our life? So, yeah, you talked about the journey, but coming home to yourself, was there a name or something that you would even give that kind of reckoning?
A lot of people will argue almost endlessly, and it's probably just a philosophical discussion on who is her? What's the concept of her? And for many women who start their awakening journey, usually sometime in their mid 30s, it's typically 35 to 42, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later. Sometimes it astrologically depends on where you're at and what year it's going to hit you. What happens is women have this awakening and they go really high up into the ethers, up into spirit. And it's where that notion of, oh, as a woman, I always knew that thing. And that's your intuition coming back online. But it keeps us from about the heart up to the crown and ahead and above the head. And we're constantly going up and down only in this limited capacity. And remember, the body goes all the way down to the root, down into the base of the spine. And so we're not accessing this lower part. And what happens is the second part of the awakening is, yes, we've gone up into the ethers. We've met the rest of our divine self, the etheric body, and we have to pull that back down into the body and live in this earthly world in a human meat suit, fully embodied. And you have to feel, frankly, all things. And you have to be able to be present to feel all of the things. And feeling it oftentimes happens deep in the base, deep in the root, in the sacral chakras. And this is her. This is the evolution of her. And so what happens is it's a return to self. And the self is this constant evolution, because the more you find up in the ethers, the more you bring back down into the body. And I think that's what women struggle with, is there's so much out there about how to have the awakening. Women are having it, they're busting up relationships, doing job shifts, starting businesses. And I think that's a big part of the era of humanity that we're in. And that is okay. But we get lost in that. Again, wait a minute, I got this huge message. I was supposed to do this and now it's not working. And what's going on? It's because now we have to do it fully in our body. And that sucks at times if you haven't come to terms with the depths of who you are. But that's the beauty of this, is for as high as you can go, that's as low as you have to go to find the depths of yourself. And only once you find the reciprocating depth to the height can you fully bring that into body. And so there's just a lot of depth to what I do. And it's not just from my own personal experience, but it's sitting with countless thousands of patient client interactions and witnessing them and the struggles that they go through. And so I still say, over the course of my career, not just even my personal life journey, but in my career, I have seen what I would call the depths of hell of what humans have experienced. And because I'm such an empath, or was the healer before I was really embodying that, I really felt what they felt. I may not have lost a spouse or a baby, but I have sat with not just one singular thing. It is a theme in my career of where I've met these people in these places. And so I can feel that in them, and it resonates in my body. And that is how we meet each other. And unfortunately, what happens with women in your group, your friends group, or at work, or whatever community you're in, if you are trying to share your experience or be seen and witnessed, and someone hasn't met that depth of the pain that you're experiencing, it will cause a rupture in the karmic connection. And that's what we often fail to repair after rupture, because we start to project it as, I can't handle that with someone. And you're right, you can't necessarily handle it, but a lot of people lack the resources to go back within and feel the depth of, like, where did that sensation first come from, so that you can meet it within yourself to meet women in that same space.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the rupture and the beginnings and endings, that's what came up for me. Was that's been a theme in my life. And really, when you think about it, it's the human experience. Even our breath begins and it ends. So everything begins and ends. And then we're spiritual beings having this human experience. And I think oftentimes what women realize in that transition is that we move from thinking we're human beings having a spiritual experience to moving to that spiritual being having a human experience, and understanding how those beginnings and endings are just part of our life. They're part of the wave of going up and down, going through emotions, and how we manage that. And to your point, like finding the resources. And that's where I feel like that's part of what I'm doing also, is helping women with the tools and the resources. One of the things that's really important to me is that I'm going to have a practice that day for women, that I'm going to guide them through some yoga therapy. It will be very gentle poses, and I'm going to sideline it with my letting go to grow workshop, allowing space for women to process what is it that they are feeling they need to let go of. And what's interesting, whenever I take people through this, oftentimes they will come up with something that was not even on their radar. They think that there's something very obvious, and then it becomes something very not obvious, that it's, oh wow, it just hits them like this is what it is. I'm really excited to hold space for the women in our retreat that are craving that and needing that space to just allow them to let go. So I'm curious what you are imagining for the women walking through the door that day at Inner Space on June 26th. What are you hoping that women will give themselves permission to feel that day?
Give themselves space to receive. And receiving it has a bad connotation, right? It's not about receiving necessarily pleasure. It's not necessarily about, oh, can I receive this gift? As, can we bring you into the moment? Will you allow yourself to be brought into the moment between you and I, guiding them, and wait for the thing to come? It's not necessarily good. It's not bad. It could be any of it. It just comes through. And that's where your guided yoga poses, the softened poses of sitting and waiting. So much of these retreats in the past, and even tools that I was teaching in the past, they're very much masculine guided. They have a lot of masculine energy to them. And we need that. We need that to set our own self up to receive. And so we'll guide you through some breath practices, but we're not in here going to be doing this labored holotropic breath work to slam you into this massive experience. And if you've ever gone to a retreat and you've had that, it's not going to be that. It is going to be a slow evolution of, oh, I can sit with this. Oh, I can notice the sensation in my chest. I might press on it. It might start to evoke a memory, a thought, and I'm going to let that memory and thought come through. And now I'm going to have a feeling like where I'm sad. And now I might start crying and having some tears. And again, you guys, scientifically, these things last 90 seconds if you'll give it the time. And then we come out of it. And then can you feel the peace? Can you feel the higher vibrational energy that will come through? And a lot of times when we're going to retreats, or a lot of retreats are hosted to have that massive release. We're releasing. And remember, I said we have to unstick these physical, emotional, and mental bodies. My biggest issue with some of these things in the past that I've experienced, even when I've gone to my own retreats and wondered about the retreats I've hosted, is the integration. And the integration is that moment after that we allow. And so it will be a slow practice of letting yourself get through it. And so my hope for women is that if you come to do this, you're setting yourself up for nothing and see what comes through. Just simply allowing, I'm going to sit with whatever it is. And the beauty about a group space is you'll have your experience of it. And collectively as a group, there's going to be a theme that comes through. And that is, for me as a facilitator, as the lore, that is the exciting part, because I can't plan for that. I can't market this. I don't know what it'll be. There'll be a theme that comes through. And then us as a group will get into that theme and really release it. And this is the power of sisterhood. This is the power of her. This is the power of coming back to self, of allowing ourselves to receive.
It makes me so excited for the day already, just to think about that theme coming forward and the space that's being created, and women who are allowing themselves to come into this day. And I'm already hearing from the women who are signing up that they have been seeking something like this, that there is this thing happening in our world. And it's also this individual space of the masculine that was created and currently crumbling. I've talked about this several times on the podcast, so some of you might have already heard me talk about this, but it's the masculine crumbling and the feminine coming in with flow and ease. And in order to get there, sometimes there's that, as Brene Brown says, there's the rumble. There's the rumble of what has to kind of happen beneath the surface, and allow ourselves to get out of this headspace and into our bodies so that we can feel, so that we can process. And everything that you're saying is exciting, because women will receive so much from this day and this experience if they're open to that.
Was a time in my life, like 5-6 years ago, during my awakening, that I felt the real urgency. And this was my masculine repair of my energy, my own masculine energy. And there was an urgency to create my business and my practice. And it was balls to the wall energy every single day. And I had that. And now I've shifted. I've done that piece. I've got it stabilized. There's a little bit of worry on my own space of, am I doing that right? But there's a separation now between me and that thing that I created. It very much was intuitive. I was receiving the message, but I was using a lot of masculine energy to drive that. And in the last couple of years, I've known that's not the thing I need to keep doing. And I know it's something else. And I've done some coaching programs in the last few years that have really been very pushy to make me go off and do the new thing. And I've just not been ready. And part of it was evaluating my own resistance. Are you afraid, like the visibility wound? Are you afraid of being seen for the medicine woman and your gifts? And it's not that, it's that the next thing for me is slowly coming through in bits and pieces. And it's just not there yet. And so I'll receive the thing like I used to when I got the big hit that I need to create this medical practice in West Des Moines, Iowa. I knew how I was going to do it very specifically, get bits and pieces. And then I'm like, oh, I could do this thing. And my mind kind of flies off and then it just ends. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? And so it's been a slow practice of receiving because I'm in a different phase of my life than I was back then. And at this point in my life, I'm getting remarried. We're blending a family. I'm not building a business anymore. I'm out of the first 5 years. We've financially secured ourselves. It's a different threat. It's a different outcome that I was experiencing back then. This is something that just keeps coming through and insight comes in. And so I think I told you about the lore aspect of I've been exploring this piece that the body keeps the score, but the feminine is the lore for a while. And I haven't done anything with it. And maybe there's now pieces in social media, you're going to start seeing it come through about feminine nervous systems and rejecting the body keeps the score. I'm not rejecting it. It has to be incorporated in. But I feel like I'm getting insight to write a textbook for medicine. If I'm going to teach women, the feminine, how to be a medicine woman in this very masculine, patriarchal structure in the medical world that I also know is shifting, I can't just sit down and burn out a textbook. These are going to be culminations of stories. And so I write on them, I reflect on them, I experience them. And sometimes the final resolution or the insight on something I might have been trailing for months doesn't come until there's some other random experience that happens within my blended family. But it was this patient that started over here 8 months ago. And now it's a very drawn out process and I'm not forcing it anymore. I'm just allowing it. I'm just receiving it. And that level of patience in me, if you've ever known me at any point in my life, it just wasn't a thing. Like, let's be clear, like it was not a thing. And so it's not patience. It's just, I'm allowing myself to receive.
That's why we're friends, because I'm not a very patient person either. So, and I'm learning to receive as well. So we're in this space together. But I love how you shared about, again, about the body keeps the score and then this desire and dream to bring forth a textbook. And this is something that I think is so important because we do have this biomedical model that's very physically oriented to the body. And we've never taken into consideration, or very rarely, the very rare instance where the medical field has taken into account that there is the subtle body, the spiritual body, the mental, emotional body. Again, we're complex human beings. There's so many layers to us. And we really need to break past that physical layer to understand what's going on. And oftentimes, like what you're speaking to with body keeps the score, is that the body is tracking that in the physical body and trying to send messages. And if we're not listening to what that is, how do women tune into that? How do they connect what's happening in their body through the wisdom? And I think also getting quiet and listening to the inner voice. How would you present that to somebody you're working with or the women that are coming to the retreat?
I really believe now, and I'm very educated. I've gone to my NP school. I've done 2 graduate degrees with my bachelor's degree, very scientific based. In order to maintain my board certification and my licensure, I have to still do CEUs, continuing education. And so I am consistently and continually learning about the science. And the evidence is really shifting, especially in the last 20 years, especially since women are starting to be incorporated in the research. Largely, I believe that when we have a physical symptom, as women in particular, it is a sign of spiritual dis-ease. Not disease, but dis-ease. Our body is not at ease. We are not moving with ease and grace as we should as women, as the feminine inflow. And the average medical appointment in the typical Western medicine structure is 7 minutes face to face with a provider. And I'll just be clear, like my practice, I spend a minimum of 30 minutes in a follow-up with you. My initial consult is usually 45 to 60 minutes, but especially on those follow-ups, as we're having symptoms that are resolving, what I need to do to identify that physical symptom and connect it to the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual realm is I need time to bring you out of that sympathetic activation of fight or flight survival. I want to run from this, come back into body, regulate, down regulate into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, which is really the masculine's way of saying, okay, I'm ready to receive and let the feminine flow. And it depends. Sometimes people who've worked with me and they know what is going to happen, they're like, I'm so ready for her. And they're ready to just drop into it. Other people, because this is a foreign sensation, and like this is what's wrong with humans and why we have so many medical illnesses that everyone's saying there's no answer for it. It's because the body won't shift out of that sympathetic fight or flight state, and you're running in a stress and survival space. And so moving into rest and digest, moving down and down regulating is foreign, it's vulnerable, it's scary,
Yeah.
and it's not wrong. It's just I haven't felt this for so long, and what am I supposed to do here? And the thing is, oftentimes there's nothing to do there. It's simply to get into the space because that's where we can receive. That's where we can release and let the thing go. And so, yes, I've got all my medicine woman techniques. I do fascial release. I do some breath work. A lot of what I do is what I would call a somatic embodiment practice, not just getting your ether, your etheric body down into the body, but the concept of somatics. But can we feel in the space of where you're having the chest pain?
Yes.
And what's really frightening is, say you're coming and you're like, I've got chest pain and I'm coughing all the time, is we might have to get into that physical symptom for a bit until we get to the message behind it. And that can mean significant chest pain, coming down the arm, extensive coughing, feeling like you can't breathe. Again, these things last for about 90 seconds. There's so many practitioners out there trying to do this work, and I think it's great because we need to do that. But if we don't sit with it for long enough, we'll bypass the piece and try and get through it. And one of my gifts is I can usually see what's there. I can feel it. But if I go there right away without bringing you into awareness, into that space, we've missed the whole concept because the whole piece is sitting with it. And yes, this is why it's great to have someone witness you or use someone like me or you or a coach or someone who has their own gifts, is we can really bring you into that space. But if I don't let you sit with it and let the things come up, we're missing it and it won't ever resolve until we go into it. And sometimes these wounds, they have layers. We may only in 30 minutes get through just getting the physical symptom, the intensity to stop, but we may not hit the emotional and mental connection. And I have to bring you back for the next one.
This is such a great opportunity for people to understand your work and that they come in and work with you one-on-one in your office setting.
I just haven't been seeing patients on a medical basis. The insurance company has made it clear that they don't like what I do. And so I've been in a transition of backing out of that true Western medicine space and rediscovering it. But I'm always open and available for the one-to-one, the somatic work, if that's what you're desiring.
Sure. And that includes fascia release. And that's one of the things that you've introduced me to as well. And so I've been following Human Garage.
Learned way back before they were a big thing. And they have a certification course now. I haven't done it because what happened is I learned their techniques and then again asked the Lord, and I was discovering this, like the thing just comes through that I need to do. And sure, I have some proprietary things, but sometimes I'm getting into a space and moving with someone that, I don't know, nobody's ever taught it to me. It's the message of what's coming through because I can follow the energy.
Yeah, the intuitive part of you for sure. It's definitely your gift. I was going to say with the Human Garage is that I follow them on social media. And so obviously we can't see into your practice or your office, but they will show with permission of the people that they're working on some releases. And so one of the more famous ones recently was they had Leanne Rhymes on.
Yeah, with her throat.
Yeah, Leanne Rhymes with her throat, and they were releasing like her jaw. Oh my gosh. And it's instant. People are in tears the moment that they are releasing this because to the point of what you're, I think, explaining, we have that emotion, we have that trauma or that residual trauma that's stuck in the fascia and it needs to be released.
One of the main areas I work on with women, and I will likely bring into the retreat in some capacity, is our shoulders and our chest. because we're getting closed off. We're protecting. That is the space of sympathetic dominance of I'm going to survive and protect myself. And how do we open the chest, pull the scapula and the shoulders off the back and move the diaphragm? And this feeling, when you get your scapula or your shoulder off of your rib cage where it's not stuck and moving together, but it's now freely moving, and you take that first deep breath, it makes people go lightheaded. It is a definite shift. But again, we're hitting the diaphragmatic nerve, we're hitting the vagus nerve, we're expanding into a place that we haven't taken a breath into. And if we consider breath the essence of life, like all of a sudden life is hitting into a space that we haven't allowed it to.
Yeah.
And so many women are chronically suppressed in their anger, and anger is the precursor to grief or sadness. And the shoulders, the chest in particular, or the lungs in Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine is associated with grief and sorrow. And so for women, truly, these are the depths, because these are the lowest of human vibrations, of human emotions, of anger and sorrow. If we can't feel that as women, humanity won't shift. And so sometimes it's just the capacity to now fully feel that. And oftentimes for women on that first time is their own grief, their own sorrow coming up from this lifetime, past lifetimes, all of the things. And that's a powerful place.
Absolutely. Yeah, there will be a lot of heart opening that day, because that will be a very important part of the process with working with the women, is allowing that space for them to have that open heart. We put the layers on our body, literally physically and emotionally, and we block ourselves off. And it will be so important for us to make sure that the women feel safe to open their heart that day. So, oftentimes, Kara, women struggle to prioritize time for themselves, and especially an entire day like this. What would you say to the woman who is on the fence about attending the Return to Her retreat on June 26th?
I think you have to ask yourself why it is that you won't allow yourself the space to do this. Is it an association with cost? Is it an association with your time? Do you have maybe a plan that is tentative, but it's not an ultimate? I understand certain things are mandatory and you're like, oh, I just can't be there that weekend. Great. But for many of these things, I say if you're questioning it, or the cost, or oh, it's a whole day and I have to take PTO, or oh, I have to drive an hour to Des Moines to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of these things can't exist. We can't receive the thing without the opposing sacrifice or the suffering. And so this is the concept of polarity is, yes, all of this good can exist in this wonderful day retreat, and there may be a sacrifice with it. And those are the pieces that we have to really come to terms with. And even myself, I need a day like this. I need this retreat. It's time for me to be in a small group of women and allow this to happen. Again, I need it for my own soul's nourishment. A piece of the feminine coming through, being the lore, is the allowing ourselves to receive, allowing ourselves to rest, not having an outcome associated with it, and allowing it to nourish our soul so that we can move on from there. Like we said, this isn't like some retreat where you're going to get a new breathwork tool or whatever. It's about embodying the vibration and the frequency and moving on from there, because simply there's nothing else to do. I've realized this in all of my programs or the trainings I've gone through, and there's the push to go launch your new thing. It's not about doing the thing. It's simply about embodying all of the new gifts, the vibrations, the frequencies, and being that as authentically as I can. And if I'm having a shit day some days, then that means I'm just letting the frequency be, and I'm not necessarily pulling in. I'm not magnetizing that day. I'm letting it go. And that if we would read that better as women, we'd be like, she's really giving off a vibe of she's going through some shit. It's not the time to probably pile some more shit on her. But there are plenty of days where I'm also magnetizing from a very high frequency. That's the time to come to me with that. And my hope is that on that day, I'm going to be magnetizing the great frequency. But I don't know. It's going to be a mix of women. Some women are going to come in with that shit needing to be out, and other women are going to be magnetizing. My hope, though, is that when we leave, you're restored, you're nourished, and now you're the Lord, that what needs to come through you comes through you.
Yes. And exactly remembering her when we think about the whole premise behind this day. And we talked about this in the very beginning, like remembering her, bringing that back online. But it might also be a rebirth. It might be a whole new her that she's never met before, that she has been ignoring or not allowing to come through because we're conditioned by so many different aspects of our lives. And the yin and yang of this too. You talked about the duality and this feminine flow and having this other aspect of having to maybe sacrifice and investing in ourselves in a day like this, from the financial to the time to people are going to have to find people to take care of their work or take care of their children, and all of that is allowing, and that is calling in more of the feminine. And I loved what you said too about allowing to receive, allowing the rest, allowing the nourishment. And to your point too, I feel that all the time, even when I'm coaching people in human design, my heart and my throat are connected. So, very much when I'm coaching other people, it calls into my heart space. And oftentimes I'm like, that was a message I might have needed to hear today, too. So, even though we're hosting, guiding, we also are receiving that day. And that's a beautiful part of the process, too, which I'm really looking forward to.
Same here.
Lastly, as we start to wind down this conversation, I am curious what your take is on us collaborating together that kind of formulates this new space, this new energy that maybe we can't necessarily do individually on our own.
The piece for me as to why I was a solid yes is the feminine is always wanting to be seen. And as I've moved into this place, I've also done work with you on my human design. And you've really witnessed me move through some of this shit in my life. And I still teach, I coach. You don't need anyone else's validation. However, because you deeply know literally the blueprint of my soul, that I'm here with my human design, it allows a place for me to be seen and witnessed. And that stabilizes my masculine pole for my feminine to come through. And so that's a big piece, because a lot of times when women run these retreats for other women, the facilitator ends up a masculine energy to allow the other women to drop into their feminine. And I've facilitated in the past with the masculine, and that was a great place for me because it came through in a whole different way. But this is a balance to me of the two of us working together, especially for me anyway. And it doesn't make one of us be in our masculine, the other one in the feminine. It's simply my masculine pole gets stabilized because you know me. You literally know the blueprint. That's my soul. So I think that's what happens in this is I become more free, even more free than I might allow myself in a place doing it on my own, because I know someone knows me and they trust me and they believe in me and they just see me.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. And that is such an honor for me as well. And also learn from you. I always say that. And every time we talk, I might be teaching you about your human design, but I'm always learning from you as well. And especially the feminine qualities, because as we've talked about in my human design, my traditional chart's very masculine. Manifester is masculine energy, making things happen. So helping me learn to take a step back, and then we bring those energies together. And I do really feel like we complement each other in such a great way. And you know me very well as well. We're both sharing in that space, and we're able to bring that forward to this group of women in such a unique way. I'm just really looking forward to being in that space with you and being able to help these women transform into this return to her.
Likewise.
Awesome. I want to close by asking each of you to just notice what came up for you during this conversation. Maybe there was a moment where something resonated a little too deeply. Maybe you felt a quiet pull. The pull, that's her. That's the version of you that this day is designed for. If you're feeling called into this space, don't wait. Space is intentionally limited because this day is meant to feel intimate and held. Register at yourwiseselfwithsara.com. It's under courses. It is $297 for the investment for a full day of coming back to yourself on June 26th at Inner Space in Des Moines. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. And as always, please leave a 5-star review, follow the podcast, and share it with someone in your life that you feel will benefit from this message. Kara and I hope to see you on June 26th at Inner Space in Des Moines. Until then, allow your wise self to shine through her. Take care.